Another video coming in. So I done a video previously talking about the XMS versus the XMT in terms of high-speed sync, and I spoke about basically what high-speed sync is doing and how the camera goes about creating a really fast shutter speed effectively. So that's the first video, and it was a really short one, but I think it's left even more confusion because now there's the perception that the XMS can't freeze action, which is totally not true. So the old saying goes, there are more than one way to skin a cat, and that's very true. So if you're trying to freeze action, there's two ways you can go about it. You can use the shutter speed of the camera to freeze the action, or you can use the exposure of your subject to a flash to freeze the subject. So if I was going to do the first option and I was going to use high-speed sync on my high-speed sync enabled flash head, call it the XMT, I would basically pair it to my camera, make sure all the exposure triangles all correct, move my shutter speed above 250th of a second, maybe go what, 800th of a second, and I would shoot away. Okay, so the camera and the flash head will work together to expose, to make sure the flash falls in line with the interlacing process of the sensor. That's one way to do it. The second way to do it is to use the flash. Now, most movement in terms of a person's movement can be frozen around 1,000th of a second. You know, 2,000th of a second, 800 to 2,000th of a second will capture most stuff. So how do you get a flash to capture that? So you would still shoot at 125th of a second, no problem at all. What you would do is you'd look for a flash head with a really short flash duration. So your camera's shutter speed is going to 125th of a second, and in that time frame the flash is going to be just enough to fall onto the subject and die away quick enough not to leave any overexposure or ghosts or anything along those lines. So if I was going to use the flash, I would set to 125th of a second, and I would use a flash exposure or a flash duration shorter, a flash duration of around 800 to 2,000th of a second. Those two ways will freeze my subject. Okay, I can either rely on the camera's shutter speed or I can rely on the flash. Now, my preference would be to rely on the flash, and the reason my preference would be to rely on the flash is TTL is almost auto function, you know, to a certain degree. TTL is going to make things easier for you because the camera never can truly work at that speed. Remember back in the original video, shutter goes from this to doing this. The reason it does this is because it can't do that quick enough. Okay, so to rely on a camera to do something that speed whilst using flash, it doesn't make sense. If you were shooting outside, a sports person, a moving subject in beautiful daylight around about 3 o'clock, and you know the conditions were great, then yes, use the shutter speed of the camera to dictate capturing the speed. If you're working in a studio and you can control the lighting scenario, you can control everything, use the flash to dictate the freezing of the subject. Now you're probably thinking, I don't get it. So I'm going to do two demonstrations. I'm going to do one using the XMT high-speed sync capturing motion, okay, and it's going to be dictated by my camera's shutter speed. I'm going to do the same with the same sort of movement, but I'm going to use the XMS, and I'm going to use the XMS to freeze the action. So the two methods will have similar results. Hopefully you guys will get it from there, but just in case there's any confusion from the first video, the XMS isn't a lesser product, not at all. If you have a little look at it, in terms of the technology that's inside it, it uses a 3-pin flash bulb. Nobody else in the industry uses a 3-pin flash bulb. Now, why would I use a 3-pinned as opposed to a 2-pinned? The 3-pinned means that our time to its highest intensity, so our spike. Let me get a bit of paper for you. So our period to get to the highest intensity of the flash is really rapid. Now this is an awful picture. That basically here is the time it takes for the flash to reach its most intense point. And then it falls off really rapidly. That means it has a short decay period, okay? That short decay period is your flash duration. If you have a short flash duration, you've got no lingering light damaging the exposure or making it more difficult to get the correct exposure. So you're using that really intense spike of light to fall in line at your 125th of a second shutter speed to freeze the action. Now, if you have a flash head that does this slower, so say for instance, it takes it to come up to here like so, and then it falls off really casually, I then have lingering light, which is going to damage the exposure. So I need to not have that, I need to have that. And that's what the XMS does. So using either of the products, the XMT or the XMS, I can freeze motion effectively. So I'm going to do 2 demonstrations and I'll get them up as soon as possible. You guys can have a little look, and anything in terms of photography, please do leave your questions in the comments at the bottom. More than happy to help. Give you a bit about myself. I am a photographer. I also work for Bowens. I'm very technical. My main passion is music and photography. I work in the music industry photography wise, but I'm very involved in the photography industry. So if you need to ask me any questions, feel free. If I don't know the answer, I'll go away and find you one. Cheers, catch you next time.